loss adjusters and investigators. Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy with part 2 of our Melbourne COVID lockdown week, where my students have asked me for some extra support so they can fill in their time while they are inside and the footy's not on, and they can do a little bit of extra study. So today we're going to look at the scene inspection for loss adjusters and private investigators. Now, it's one of the first things that you do. It's actually probably the first thing that you will do in most of your investigations, is that inspection of the scene where the incident, occurrence, happening, loss, theft, fraud, assault, discrimination, harassment took place. Now, that is a wide area of a lot of different potential scenes. So they could be anywhere. They could be construction sites, they could be schools, they could be the cafeteria, that could be the middle of the city on a footpath, it could be a shopping centre. Who knows what the scene is? You will have to inspect scenes. That includes measuring them, photographing them, and taking notes. Now, I've been teaching this course now for some 20 years, and I once paid an instructor a very large amount of money to come in and cover scene inspections with a class. Now, he came in, he stood up in front of them, I paid him a lot of money, and he said, "Hello, everyone. Look around what you can see. What can you see? Thank you." And he left. That was it. He said, "Look around. What can you see?" I thought, mate, I've just paid you a lot of money. I wanted forensics. I wanted DNA. I wanted bloodstains. I wanted dripping knives. I wanted axes and bullets and sky rations and burns and things falling down and that sort of thing. And he said, "Look around. What can you see?" And you know what? He was 100% right. It's as simple as that. You look around and see what you can see. Now, we do it as loss adjusters. We do it as private investigators. We go to the scene where it happened. We might get a guided tour through by the workplace health and safety manager or the owner of the business or the owner of the construction site, the principal contractor, whatever, they'll take us through it. So we go and we do that scene inspection. G'day, Evan. G'day, Jamie. Great to see you guys. All right, so we go and do that scene inspection. So the things that are involved, what are we going to be looking at? These are all in your learning materials, and I'll direct you to that in a moment. But we're going to look at the lighting. Okay, what sort of lighting is in that area? If it's a car accident, it will be the street lighting. If it's a theft from a warehouse, it might be the lighting outside the entryway where they entered and left. Who might have seen it? Is there someone there up on the hill that might have seen that light illuminating some people dressed in dark clothing, putting some gear into a van? Who knows? We look at what stock was stolen as loss adjusters, or what stock was consumed in the fire. What was the value of that stock? Have we got invoices to match to that from accounting records from the retail business or whatever? Were there any collections in the house that burnt down? Were those collections insured as original Elvis Presley LP records? Or were they not insured as a collection? These are the things that we must match against the policy as a loss adjuster. What might be missing? Now, I was lucky enough in a past workplace to be a volunteer fire person in a town fire brigade. And we'd arrive at a fire at 3 a.m. in the morning, and we'd get there and we'd start undoing all the hoses and getting the pumps ready and hooking the hoses up to the hydrants and all that. So we were trained, we were drilled, that's what we did. And we would do that. And whenever you arrived, and I hate to tell you this, ladies, it's universal throughout Australia, There'll be a very upset bloke standing there, and if you're lucky, he'll be in his undies. That's the owner of the house or the occupant of the house. And his wife will be standing somewhere near him, and she'll be in her negligee or whatever she wears to bed, and she'll be very cold and might be raining or something. And they're very distressed looking, and they're looking for the cat or the dog, and they're making sure they've got all the kids there. This is a surprise that's happened in the middle of the night. So that's what they look like. So that's what you go to the scene and see. Now, one night we arrived at a fire, and there's a man standing there at 3 a.m. in the morning in an Armani suit holding an insurance policy under his arm. Now, that wasn't anything missing, but it didn't look right. So that's why you speak to the fire brigade. You speak to emergency services. You speak to the attending police. You speak to the attending ambulance, and they tell you what they saw. So those of you who took the time to watch the time and event line extended version of what we did yesterday and went to those links that I showed you, you'll see how the fire brigade tied it all in with having to cut that lock on that entryway. No one else could have gone up that driveway. So we look at the scene. We look at it, if it's a business, we look at the equipment. Is it all there? Did they recently buy a very expensive asset and that's missing? Are there warning signs around the area if it's a slip, trip and fall? What's the visibility like inside the building? If it's a slip, trip and fall, where's the nearest rubbish bin? Is there CCTV in the area? What am I trying to get at here, people? What am I saying to you? I'm saying, look around. What can you see? It's as simple as that. Now, one of the ones I found really interesting, because I do speak to a lot of police officers, all right, and I'm not here to teach you criminal investigation in any way, shape or form. I'm totally against that. Okay, this Australian serial killer idiot, he's killed 3 ladies. He's serving 3 life sentences. I'm not even going to say his name. What he did, he made an appointment to see a psychologist who was working from home, a young lady. She wanted to establish a business, so she had a little unit out the back of her house, and he made an appointment with her. Unbeknownst to him, she wrote the phone number down, the mobile phone number down that he called her on. He actually used an Indian student's number who was at his house about a job interview, and he used that quickly to make that call and that appointment. So it disassociated him with her. Now, she wrote that number down on a piece of paper and it slipped down the back of her couch. When the police, after the murder that he committed in that room, when the police searched it, they found that piece of paper. They discovered that it belonged to an Indian student, so they went out and they arrested him and took him away he was the last person to make an appointment with her. And he knew nothing about a lady psychologist. He was a very sophisticated person. He knew nothing about any of this. And then they went back through where he'd been and all that sort of thing, time and event line, on where he'd visited, who had access to his phone. And they put 2 and 2 together and realised that this guy might have done it. And another thing at that scene, they had all the forensics from the police. They were forensic experts, highly trained. And they were going all over this scene looking for things. And there wasn't much that they were finding. They weren't finding a lot of fingerprints. They weren't finding a lot of that. I'm not sure it was this scene or another scene somewhere else, but they just really struggled. And one police officer there who was with them, and a very experienced police officer, and I'm glad he was, you know what he did? He looked around to see what he could see. And he looked at the refrigerator, and it looked like it had been out of place because it was a bit dusty underneath it. And there was a clean spot, though. Obviously that had shielded from the dust. It alerted his attention to it. So he went and looked behind it, and on a coat hanger behind the fridge was a blood-spattered shirt that the murderer wore on the day he went and killed that lady. So he is now serving 3 life sentences. Yes, we're learning here from police, but the basic thing I want you to get that they do, right? They're no smarter than anybody else, and they're the first people to admit it, is all they do is this here. Look around, see what you can see. It's easy. You don't have to have a double degree in DNA forensics, all right? Now, you don't have to go, oh, look, there's sperm over there, there's guts over there, there's blood over there, fingerprints here, there's ropes, handcuffs and chains. That's pretty kinky, I know. But You don't have to worry about that. You look at what you can see there at the time when you go there. Now, it's difficult. If you're a loss adjuster and you get assigned an incident that happened on a construction site, by the time you actually get to that incident, there is going to be a shopping centre on that construction site. So you don't really have a scene. But you might be able to speak to people that may have taken photographs who were there working at the time. The electricians could be proud of their electrical work or their installation of this or that. You can go and ask that and you can look for it, depending on where it happened. Now that there's a big shopping centre right on top of the hole where the guy fell into. So there are ways and means with that, all right? And if you can't see it because there's a shopping centre on top of it now, you can ask other people that were there at the time, what did you see? Your witnesses that you're going out and interviewing. There it is. Look around. What is it you can see? Note it. Inside a shopping centre, it could be the cleaning routine, the cleaning patrols. It could be the security patrols. Are they going around every 15 minutes like they're supposed to be? If it's a big fire, you might be able to, if you're lucky enough, and I'm sure you're going to be one day as a loss adjuster, start using this stuff. Yes, ladies, you'll be using these things, and gentlemen, you'll be using these things in your loss adjusting work. So it might be a big arson. It might be a major flood or an earthquake or whatever. And if it involves a large area, you'll be sending these up. And that's really, really exciting stuff in your work, because you are now going to be Captain Katie, or Captain Jane, or Captain Jill, or Captain Erica, whoever you are as a loss adjuster, that's what you're going to be. You're actually going to be a pilot with these things in some circumstances if you use the bigger ones. Now you can get smaller ones and you can just do your local crane collapse or something like that. But before you start using these things, you really should check out your laws and your regulations in relation to their use. Or you can always, as a loss adjuster, hire an expert to do it for you. There are lots of loss adjusters that actually use these. I know one that's actually got a separate business that does scene inspections just using drones. And he operates Australia-wide. So that's something you're going to be using along with your camera, along with your video, along with your measuring wheel. These are things you're going to be using to inspect those scenes with. So that is really important. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be taking photos, and sometimes with a fire, you want to get right up on top of it. You must be prepared for anything and keep an open mind. This is really important.
If you are studying the Diploma of Loss Adjusting,
Sorry, lost it there. But that lady in that video, she actually won one of those boys' home lotteries or whatever it was. She actually won it. And her family had lived for 3 generations in a house in Brisbane. She didn't want to move out of it. She wanted to stay there, and the press had a field day crucifying that lady. And the investigator who undertook that investigation, she actually spoke to the lady, sat down with a cup of tea, and found out that she didn't want anything at all to do with the house on the Gold Coast. She wanted to sell it, but she did want the big screen TV. And she took the big screen TV and she took it home. And she took that big screen TV back home and put it in her house, had it installed. And it was that big screen TV that the electrics or something were wrong with it. And TVs do go up in flames all the time. Check your insurance policy. Sometimes if you don't turn them off, then that's going to mean you're not covered. So you've got to turn them off and unplug them. There's some insurance policies that say that. In fact, quite a few of them do. Did you turn your TV off and unplug it last night? Yeah. So that lady, she won a house on the Gold Coast. Her house in Brisbane burnt down. The media and the press crucified her over that. They thought she did it. They thought she was an arsonist who burnt her own house down for greed and wanted to get cash for the money, but she didn't. Not at all. Do you think the press ever apologised to her? Nope, they didn't. So that's really, really important to understand. You must keep an open mind, no matter what they're saying in the press, no matter what's going on anywhere else in relation to your approach with your investigation. Now, if you want to watch the replay of this program, just go over here to YouTube. You type in Michael Evans Investigator and it'll come up. Okay, it's got the replay of this program, so any part of it about scene inspection you want to see again, you can go there and see it. So I'm going to show you how to find both of those videos in relation to scene inspections. Now, if you're a loss adjuster or if you're a private investigator, there is a video called The 7 Basic Sources of Information in Your Moodle Materials. So here's where to find it.
if you are studying the Diploma of Loss Adjusting, go into the unit, evaluate collected information and report findings in loss adjusting on your Moodle menu. Go down to topic 1, analyse established facts. Scroll down to assess validity of claim against policy coverage and policy specifications, and there's your video on the 7 basic sources of information, including the first one, inspection of the scene. If you are studying Certificate 3 in Investigative Services, go to Conduct Factual Investigations in the Moodle menu. Go to Topic 1, Prepare for Factual Investigation, and scroll down to the bottom where it says the 7 basic sources of information, and that's your video there.
Okay, so that's where you can find the 7 basic sources of information, and it starts out with the first basic source, which is an inspection of the scene, accident, happening, occurrence, assault, whatever it might be. So you go there and you look at it. Now be aware, if an accident's already happened there, you're going to have to take your PPE with you. You may want to be very aware of your own personal safety. It can be distressing. I had to do a scene inspection on one occasion, and a lady had been killed by a driver who was reversing out of a car park at a shop. Now, this was in a local area, in a small suburb, and a person came along, and he was the grandson of the lady that was killed. She was an elderly lady. She was bent over on a walking stick. There was a slight incline that the driver had to reverse up, but because she was bent over and he was reversing up, he couldn't see her, and he knocked her over and killed her. His car was impounded for something like 2 years as the police forensically examined it for faults. So this person, the grandson, was very upset. While I'm measuring and inspecting the scene, he's going off and carrying on and absolutely going really, really crazy. And I had to keep reminding him, mate, I'm just doing my job. I had nothing to do with it. I understand you're upset, so be prepared for that. That's going to happen. in the big floods in Queensland some 10 years ago, there were loss adjusters sent there, and they had to sit down with people who'd lost children in those floods. And they had to take statements from them. And two of the loss adjusters could not do it. They just ran out crying. Now, it's great that you've got empathy, but you have a job to do. And those people have lost their business or their house or whatever, they're insured. So you don't want to put them through this sort of thing twice. Right, so be prepared. If you're not up to the task of dealing with fatalities, it may be that you suggest, if it's a fatality involved in your loss adjusting or your investigation assignment, that someone else goes and does it. Okay. Some of the things you'll find at scenes are really interesting. They're beyond the mundane. Okay, so the mundane things are rubbish bins, lighting, the floor surface carpet, concrete, tiled, whatever. So there are different things at different scenes. There are loss adjusters that just do roofs. That's all they do. So they go to a roof this week and it's a ColourBond red roof, and it's a course of construction issue or it's a completed building issue, and they do the loss adjusting assignment on that. Must be really exciting people to have dinner with. They go, oh yeah, I did a dome roof today. Great, mate. Really exciting. But beyond that kind of excitement, here's an excitement level for what you find at the scene goes right up high here. Now, again, this is police, but they're clever people. And they're clever people because they looked around and looked at what they could see. They solved 2 murders doing it.
Now, this is a very extreme example, but the Tasmanian police have been using unique forensic methods in their scene examination. There's a couple of good examples from down there. I'm not expecting you to be a police officer, but they were smart thinking when they examined the scene. The first one, they found a leach inside a building where a murder took place. Now, what they did, they bagged and tagged that leach, and I guess they froze it. And when they examined its DNA with the blood inside it, 8 years later, they were able to prove that the blood in that leach was from the murderer, who said he wasn't at the crime scene at the time. So that actually pinned on the murderer through DNA. Another one that happened in Tasmania was a murder where a man was violently bashed to death. The person that did it had a firm alibi, but the person who was bashed to death had a pacemaker. So they had an exact time of death. So they were able to prove that the main suspect, could not provide an alibi for that time. So they're just a couple of really extreme examples of what can happen with scene inspections when you're looking for it. Now, we do the everyday mundane. It's going to be the stock control, how much stock was in there, how much stock has been sold, or how much was sent to the other branch. We're looking at equipment that might be there, that sort of thing. But look around. What can you see? What is missing? These are very important issues with the scene inspection.
Okay, so included with that, are there next door neighbours? Are there neighbouring shops? Are there neighbouring areas? We had a case for a loss adjuster in New South Wales some years back where there was an accident with a very expensive European model car. And what had happened was the person had put in a claim that they'd hit this other car head on. It's a head-on collision in this warehouse district, 10:30 at night. And there was nobody else involved in it except the 2 drivers, who both had whiplash injuries, by the way. Okay, nobody else. And there was nobody else around this warehouse area. It was near the wharf. Except there was one person, a security guard. Now, he heard some hooning going on outside his building. So he thought, oh, that's a bit strange. So he switched on the CCTV cameras. And he could see the 2 cars. And his statement to the loss adjuster was, no, they didn't hit head on. The CCTV video, which the security guard survived, shows the 2 cars going towards each other at about 10 kilometres an hour and crashing into each other. They get out, the drivers, and they look at it and go, oh, no, that's not enough damage. So they reverse, get back in, reverse back, and go and crash in at each other a little bit faster. They get out of the car and look at it and go, no, that's not enough damage. They get back in the car, they reverse back, and they do it again, head on. And they did it 7 times, and it was all on the video. It was a fraudulent claim. Now, it was a fraudulent claim only because they were committing fraud, which is like told to go to benefit, chattel, or advantage, and they wanted the insurance for their vehicles, which that was what they were claiming. But the loss adjuster door knocked the warehouse area and said, did anyone see on this evening this, and this? And someone must have said to him, oh, Fred was on duty that night. He'll be able to tell you that. Here's his phone number. The loss adjuster rang Fred. Fred told him the story I've just told you, and that solved that claim. So being aware of who the neighbours are, who the neighbouring businesses are, what might else be available is really important. So we will be talking about other parts of scene inspections in insurance claims later on this week, in particular about missing jewellery and how a scene inspection was used in a fraudulent claim for that. I mean, that's quite frequent, but you're going to get the idea as you're introduced to some of these concepts. Now, you might be a loss adjuster that only does, I don't know, car loss adjusting. That's all you do, those claims, car accident claims. But in the future, you might go and work somewhere else. You might become a manager, and you're doing the jewellery claims, the home and contents, the arson claims, the break-in steal claims, that sort of thing. So this is all part of your learning materials, and it's all part of your being aware for your future. It's not just what you do now, what happens in the future as well. The other thing I've got to discuss with all the loss adjusters at the moment as you're preparing after your May start for this program is recognition of prior learning. Now, for recognition of prior learning, this is what I require from you. I need your resume. Now, a resume is not third-party evidence or proof of anything. It's just a resume. It tells me, your assessor, where you've worked and what you've done and how long you've worked there. When I combine that with the copies of your qualifications that you provide to me, now you might have qualifications in claims, you might have qualifications in investigation, statement taking, or whatever. You might even have a qualification in childcare. Well, that's great because it's going to have a workplace health and safety component in it, and it's relevant. So don't decide what's relevant, just send me all your qualifications, okay? And I'll take electronic versions of those at this stage as we put it together. So I need your resume, copies of your qualifications. Now, this is really important. Recognition of prior learning is about third-party evidence of what you've done in the past or what you do at your work. So I need your position description. Now, if you don't have a position description, you might have a duty statement. Now, if you don't have that because you work for a rather small business, that's fine, and they don't have that, that's okay. Get your employer to write me a letter on letterhead that says, Jane has been employed at Loss Adjusters R Us since the 4th of November 2017, and during that time, she has completed 184 assignments for loss adjusting for our firm. That's all I need. I don't have to have them say, and Jane's probably the best loss adjuster we've ever seen and the most efficient and really good at a job and all that. No, I just need the number of assignments that you've completed as a loss adjuster, you individually. Okay? But if you've gone and done a drone course, yeah, beauty, put that in there as well. Okay, that's really important. If you've done a photography course, put that in there as well. Resume, qualifications, position description, letter from your employer. No more complicated than that. Now, I just told you there are loss adjusters out there that only do loss adjusting for roofs. There are loss adjusters out there that only do loss adjusting for motor vehicles. Do they have to be able to do a complex medical negligence loss adjusting claim? No, they don't. They do not. Recognition of prior learning is about what you do in your workplace, not what the CIA or FBI do in theirs. So let's concentrate on what you do, and I'm going to help you get through this program with credit for what you do every day or for what you've done in the past. So that's very important. Position description, resume, copies of your qualifications, a letter from an employer, your employer, saying how long you've worked there and how many loss adjusting assignments you've done since you started. That's all I need. It'll take 2 sentences. You can write it because you've got it all on your computer, how many you've done. It's all there in your spreadsheets. Confirm with them that that's what it is. Don't sex it up, just the number you've done, all right? If it's 64, I don't mind. Just tell me how many it is. It doesn't have to be 7,000. Because if it was that, you'd be 160 years old. So it's what you do in your workplace. If you loss adjust for roofs, that's great. If you loss adjust for vehicles, that's great. If you loss adjust for personal injury workers' comp, that's fine. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do vehicles. It's what you do that's important. So you must convey that to me. Now, I know that sounds like you're bragging about yourself, but wait a minute. All you do every day as a loss adjuster is write reports on evidence from other people. I'm just asking you to do that yourself. So prepare those documents, send them to me in electronic form first, and we'll get you through this qualification in a timely manner. Okay? I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. Tomorrow we'll be coming back and looking at day 3 of our loss adjusting support program. See you then. I might just play that video about the lady with the TV. I think I cut it out, so I'll end with that. You've got to get one of these. Here's where you find them. Just a quick reminder.
If you are studying the Diploma of Loss Adjusting, go into the unit, evaluate collected information and report findings in loss adjusting on your Moodle menu. Go down to topic 1, analyse established facts. Scroll down to assess validity of claim against policy coverage and policy specifications, and there's your video on the 7 basic sources of information, including the first one, inspection of the scene. If you are studying Certificate 3 in Investigative Services, go to Conduct Factual Investigations in the Moodle menu. Go to Topic 1, Prepare for Factual Investigation, and scroll down to the bottom where it says the 7 basic sources of information, and that's your video there.
So I'll see you tomorrow for part 3 of our Melbourne lockdown support, loss adjusting and investigation. Get a drone, you've got to have one of these. See you tomorrow. Got a lot more to go this week. Interesting stuff.